All right, so now chapter 3, lesson 7 deals with coordinate planes or coordinate graphs. You'll see it called different things according to whoever the publisher of the worksheet or the assignment or the book is, but they mean the same thing. Some of you are going to look at it like, I remember this from last year. That's easy. Great, but don't skip the video because I'm going to be explaining the vocabulary words that I'll be using throughout the entire set that we do videos on coordinate planes and coordinate graphs. And some of you are looking like, oh, I never got that last year. I can't do this. Please don't feel that way because I'll explain it to you and hopefully I'll give you ways that you can remember it precisely. And if you're paying attention, it's really going to help you the most. Once again, you got to be focused. Some of you struggle with focus like I do, and I get it. That's why you got a video. Rewatch it. Go back. Rewind. Play again. The first part of this is learning the key terms, the definitions. Some of these will be on your test. I'll be using these throughout the entire time that I make videos and anytime we talk about coordinate planes. So please take the time to pay attention and learn what these words mean. First is just the idea of the coordinate plane. Now on the coordinate plane, there's different ways that I can see how they have it set up. On this one, it's a basic 5 grid, which means I go forward, up, back, and down to 5. That's what's in your book. Some of them in your book, they have 2 units or 2 blocks for every number, meaning they go 1 and then you have the number 1. They go another and then 2, another and then 3. So those are halfway marks, which we'll see here in a couple of the examples. Sometimes they're going to go out to 20, or maybe you'll have one that's really itty bitty tiny box and you have to go all the way out to 100. The thing about this is I really like coordinate planes. I like graphs because you can do a lot of fun things with them. I'm going to be giving you assignments from this point forward where I give you a sheet of coordinates that you have to use called ordered pairs, and you're going to draw a picture with it by doing a dot to dot. But if I don't know how to plot something correctly on a coordinate plane, it becomes a struggle. So this lesson is all about learning what it means and then being able to do it successfully. I have 2 parts to my coordinate plane or my coordinate graph. I should see a big plus sign in the center that's darker color. And since it is a colored book, you'll see that they're in black, the thicker black compared to the blue lines. I have first the x-axis. The x-axis is horizontal, it goes straight across. In the center where the parts meet, that's going to be your 0. And then as I go forward, I should see I have positive numbers, and I go backwards, I have negative numbers. My y-axis is vertical. It goes up and down. Once again, meeting in the 0, or in the center is 0. Going up is positive, going down is negative. With those 2 lines, my axes, my x-axis and my y-axis, I can get an origin at the very beginning, where they meet. So I have my x meeting my y, they cross in the center. I'm not going forward, I'm not going backwards, I'm not going up, I'm not going down. So I have 0, 0. That location right in the center is called my origin. I always know that I'm going to stop where I am if I have a 0. The origin numbers, the ordered pair, would be 0, 0 because I'm not going anywhere. We'll get to ordered pairs. Ordered pairs are always, always, always going to be displayed with parentheses and a comma in the center. If all I have is a number, comma, a number, you're giving me a list of numbers, and I'm going to count it wrong because that's not an ordered pair. It's like if I said, okay, I want you to show me the question, what is the absolute value of -7? If you put -7, that's an integer. But if I put those 2 lines, that is asking what's the absolute value of -7. Then I can count it right. You have to have parentheses and a comma for it to truly be an ordered pair. My ordered pair always has 2 parts to it. You'll always see 2 numbers. That's the one that's in the book. Okay? So when I talk about those 2 numbers, then I have to know that one, the first one, is always my x coordinate. Coordinate just means number or location. My y, my second number, is my y coordinate. So when I have my x-axis and my y-axis, I will always plot them in that order. I will always do my x first, followed by my y. So I know that if I'm on my x-axis and I go to my 0, which is my point of origin, that's where I'm always going to start. But if it's a positive number, such as this, I'm going to go forward because all my positive numbers that are in my x coordinate, my first one, are always going to go forward. If my first number is negative, then I got to go backwards because my negatives are always backwards. My second number is always going to be my y coordinate. So therefore, I'm going to use my y-axis, my vertical line, to figure out where it goes. If my second number is positive, then I'm going to go up because my positive numbers are always going up on my y. If my second number is negative, then I'm going to go down. Now notice, neither of these have a positive sign. If you think back to when we talked about integers, that's okay, because we know any number without a sign is automatically positive. However, if it's negative, I have to have that little subtraction sign. It has to show me that it's negative. When it comes to plotting then, I'm going to follow the x, y pattern. I'm always going to figure out where the x is, and then I'm going to go to my y, and then I'm going to put a point. What that means is if it tells me 3, it's a positive 3, so I'm going to start at my point of origin. I'm going to go to the origin, which is my 0, 0, right in the center where I put that stop sign. I'm going to go over 3 units. A unit means, well, I don't know if those are feet, inches, centimeters, miles, kilometers. It doesn't matter. Whatever it's showing me, I know that there are 3 blocks, and those blocks, they're going to be called units. So I go forward 3. Now, what I have sometimes when 6th graders come to me, having been taught this before, they end up with 2 points here. It's not 2 points. I can't put my second point until I get to my second, or my first point until I get to my second number. Right? So I have to go forward 3. I don't put a point because my second number in my ordered pair, my y coordinate, tells me to then go up a positive 2. When I go up a positive 2, then I know I can put my point. Now, the way that I teach it and try to get it into your mind is that you're always going to talk about running before you jump. If you want to be a long jumper in high school, you have to run before you jump. In high school, I was a pole vaulter. Pole vaulter is the person that carries that really long pole, runs, sticks it in the ground, it bends, and then it throws you up. Okay? If I would try to pole vault without running, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not strong enough to just bend that pole down. My momentum of running and putting that pole in the ground will then allow me to jump up. So if I always run before I jump, I know I'm either going to run forward or run backwards. If it's positive, I'm going to run forward. If it's negative, I'm going to run backwards. But then I can jump. I can either jump up if it's positive, or I can jump down if it's negative. Positive tells me I can go forward. Positive tells me to go up. So if you've seen the movie Avengers, and when we're introduced to the Black Panther, we see the Black Panther chasing after a guy with a silver arm on a motorcycle, okay, the Winter Soldier. He takes off running as fast as he possibly can, and he's quicker than Captain America. Once he gets to a point where he's close enough, then he jumps and he leaps and captures him, knocks him off of the motorcycle. But he's running first, then he's jumping. But maybe you're not into movies, maybe you're not into superheroes like I am, so we can talk about track. Okay? If you want to do long jump, as I mentioned, then you can run before you jump also. If I have a negative number, then that tells me instead of going forward, I'm going to run backwards. So in long jump, this is Britain's champion when it comes to female long jumping. She's a fast sprinter, one of the fastest sprinters on her country's team. But she takes off running down that lane, and then when she hits the long jump board, she goes flying through the air. She just broke the British record for furthest long jump for the female, and then she's like the third for even the males. That woman can jump. But if she didn't take off running first, she would never be able to get the distance that she does when she gets her long jump in. Have to run before we jump. So when we're talking about running and then jumping, then I know my first number is always going to be my run. It's going to be forward or backwards, positive or negative. My second number is always going to be my jump. I'm either going to jump up on the y-axis or jump down because it's a negative. So that lets me plot things then on my coordinate graph. Now, there is one thing that is not mentioned when it comes to this in your vocabulary words. And it is something that's been on the I-Step test for the past several years. I will assume that's going to be on the I-Learn, but I don't know. So I am going to introduce it to you here. These are called quadrants. Okay? So when it comes to quadrants, you might write this down just so you can go back and look at it in case it comes up. But the word quad, or the prefix quad, or the root word, means 4. That's why we have QUA in the word quarter, okay? Or we have a quart, QUA, because that means 4. This is divided evenly amongst 4 different boxes. The way I look at it is, if I know there are 4, these weird numbers are called Roman numerals. And I'm always going to have positive, positive, which is my quadrant 1. And then I go counterclockwise. We're used to doing almost everything clockwise. Well, not this one. This one's counterclockwise. So I'm always going to go straight across. I'm going to have a negative positive number for quadrant 2, a negative number for quadrant 3, and then a positive negative for quadrant 4. With that in mind, then we have the first example that they give to us, figuring what the ordered pair is, or the coordinate points, for these treasure chests, excuse me. Trying to figure out where we were. So we start with point P is located at what? And they tell you it starts at -2. But if I look at my treasure chest on what we're talking about, this one's -2 in the top left-hand corner. So I know it's -2, and if I count my boxes, I'm going backwards 1, 2, it does go to -2. So my first movement has to be going backwards from my origin. When I first go to my ordered pair, and I have my X, I always start at my point of origin. My Y starts where I left off on my X then. So I go backwards 2, and then it tells me to go where? Well, it has 1, 2, 3 boxes. So if I go up 3, then I know my second number has to be a positive 3, because going up has all of my Y-axis in positive realm. So I run backwards -2, I jump up a positive 3. So my ordered pair is the -2, positive 3. Sometimes we're going to get pretty far out there, maybe even 20 spaces or 20 units from the Y-axis. So follow your finger across and locate where it's ending up, so you can tell that it is indeed a positive 3. So find treasure chest Q. So Q is down here in this third quadrant, right? So I know I'm going to go backwards again, but this one looks like it goes a little further, doesn't it? So I have 1, 2, 3 units this time. So I'm going to go run backwards. So I know it's going to be a -3. Then I'm jumping down. So my second number also has to be a negative. How many am I jumping down? Well, when I jump down, I have 1, 2, 3 units again, right? So I'm going back -3 and then down, and that's a -3 also. So my Y-axis also has to be a -3. So my coordinates for Q are -3, my X, -3, my Y. R is my next one. R is over here in that quadrant 1. So I have to start back, once again, at my point of origin. I have to start at my 0, 0, not going anywhere yet. And then I'm going to move forward. So what type of number is that? Positive, right? So I'm going to go forward to my 4. My first number then, therefore, in my ordered pair is a positive 4. And then I'm going to go up to the 3 again. So if that's positive 3, then that has to be my Y-axis. So I'm going 4, 3. I know that that's going to be in my quadrant 1 because it's a positive, positive. Then I go back to my point of origin again as I look for S. And S is right here, right? So my very first one is what? A positive or a negative? Neither, right? I'm not going forward, nor am I going backwards. I'm stopped right there on the line. So if I'm stopped right there on the line, what does that X have to be? Hopefully you thought, well, it's a 0 because I'm not going anywhere. And then you would be correct. And if you didn't think that, well, it's a 0 because you're not going anywhere. So write down your 0. And then I'm going straight down on my Y-axis, and I'm going down 1, 2, so that has to be a -2 for my Y. So these are ordered pairs, and notice the book's already giving you your parentheses, front and back, They've given you your commas to separate them, showing you there always has to be parentheses and commas in your answers. Now on this one, as I described before, we have these halfway lines, and that shouldn't be difficult. We've done fractions up to this point. We've done decimals up to this point. You know what halfway means. So if I have my 0 and I have 2 away as 1, then this first one either has to be 0.5 if it's a decimal, or 1/2, 1/2, if it's a fraction. When I look at my ordered pair then, I have 2 numbers. My first one is my x, right? It's positive, so I'm going to go in what direction when I run? Go forward, right? A +2. So I'm going to run forward to the 2. Now, I can't just move forward 2 units because I'm actually going to move forward 4 to the 2. So when I go forward to the 2, then it tells me to drop down because it's negative. I'm going to drop down 1/2 of my unit, which is going to take me to 1/2. Now, once again, notice 2 lines. Don't go halfway between the lines in the space, which we can do later on some of our coordinate grids. But since they give me my halfway mark, I know that one has to go on a line that's given to me. So make sure we go down to that first line, and then I can put my point. Now here's the thing, when it says to plot the point and label it A, then I have to not only put my point, but I have to put the label with it. The reason we do that is because we're going to have 4 on this grid, and if I just have 4 floating dots, I don't know which one is which. So I have to make sure that I label it A because it tells me to do so. And we say, okay. On B, my first one, when I run, which way will I run? Am I going to run forward or am I going to run backwards? So hopefully you thought, I'm going to run backwards because it's a -5. My negatives always tell me to run backwards. I'm going to go to that first line, which is -5. And then I'm going to 0. 0 says to stay, to stop right where I am, right? So I know that I'm going to be on the line. So if my first number is a 0, I go straight up or down. If my second number is a 0, I move either to the right or left, but then I stay where I am on that line. So those zeros are key to where I'm going to go. So I only went over to that first line. I know I have to put my point, and then that point has to be labeled with a B. We had 2 more, right? Now mine are cut off, so we'll put them there. On this one, I have 2.5. It's positive, so I know I'm going to run because my first number always tells me to run either forward or backwards. I'm going to run forward to 2.5. Now, don't count 2.5 boxes because remember those first boxes are halves. So I'm going to have to go 1, 2 to the 1, 1, 2 to the 2, and then I go to a 4th or 5th one. That gives me my 2.5. So I'm going to go over 5 boxes total, but I'm going to go over 2.5 measurements or units. I go all the way over to the 2.5, and then it tells me to jump up, because it's positive, 3/4. Now that one's not on a line, is it? So I know that 3/4, 3 out of 4 quarters, is a little more than a half, right? 75 hundredths. So I have to go up 1, which gives me my half, but if I go to the whole unit, that's too much. So that one has to be in that space right in between them. Has to go up because it's positive. So when I go up almost to the 1, then I know that I'm in the right spot. I put my point, and that one gets labeled as a C. And then I have my 4th one. It tells me to do negative, negative. Well, when we talked about our coordinates, we said going backwards is negative and going down is negative. So I know that the quadrant that it's going to be in is my quadrant 3. So I'm going to run backwards 1.25. Now 1/4 is 25 cents, right? Well, half of a dollar is 50 cents. So I go 1 whole unit, but I got to go halfway between where the 1 is and that next blue line to give me my 1.25. So I'm going to go left because it's negative and stop right there in that little space and then jump down 1.75. That's kind of like that 1 or that 3/4 there. Not quite to the 2, but almost. So I know it's negative, and I have to go down. Then I can put my point. And that point has to be D. So I have all 4 of them. Forward and down, so in my 4th quadrant is A. Forward and up, my 1st quadrant is C. Straight back, that's not even in a quadrant because it's on my x-axis is B. And then back and down, negative, negative, that's my quadrant 3. All right, so we went through the introduction. Now we're going to look at what the assignment's going to look like. Yes, I know some of you are like, I'm ready to go. So let's go. And if you're not, if I go too fast, please pause the video. If you daydream, rewind it a little bit, rewatch it so you know what you're doing. Your homework should be a pretty easy grade for you, and you should do well on it. Write the ordered pair for point J. Start at the origin. That's where we always begin, 0, 0. Right in the middle for our origin. Move blank units to the blank, and blank units blank. The ordered pair is. Okay, so what they're saying is I go to my point of origin and I have to figure out if I'm going to run forward or backwards. Once I've done that, I figure out what number I ran to. Then I'm going to figure out am I going to jump up or jump down and what number I'm going to. So running and jumping, X and Y. My first one is J, it's up here. So I know I'm going to my origin and I'm running backwards. Now, if it helps, you can put your finger here where the J is and then follow the line until you figure out where it is right here. What's on the line right between -1 and -2. So I know that if it's more than -1 and not as much as -2, it has to be -1.5. Negatives are always to the left. So I go over -1.5, or I go 1.5 units over. And then we jumped up. And when I jumped up past the 2, right? So that has to go 1 more beyond the 2. So it has to be 2.5. So going up 2.5. My first number went left. What type of number does it have to be? Because now we're going to do the ordered pair. Remember on ordered pairs, you have to have your parentheses separated by a comma. So my first one, I went backwards -1.5 to the left. And then my second one, I went up, because it was positive, 2.5. So that would be my ordered pair. Now, could you do decimal points? Absolutely. If you prefer to have -1.5, comma, or positive 2.5, that is quite acceptable as well, as long as they don't say you have to use fractions or you have to use decimals. All right, so write the ordered pair for point K. Well, where's K? K's over here, right? That's my 4th quadrant. And I went forward, so I know it's a positive when I run. And then I jumped down, so that's a negative. So I went forward to the 1 and down to the, well, it's between -1 and -2. So that's got to be -1.5. So my ordered pair have to have parentheses, have to have a comma. My first one, I went forward 1 when I ran, has to be a positive 1. And then I jumped down for my Y, which I went -1.5. What if I want to put -1.5? That's fine. I don't mind. L. Let's see. L's down here, quadrant 3, because it's negative, followed by a negative. So I know I'm running backwards. What am I running backwards to? I'm running backwards to a -2. So my first number in my ordered pair, once again, I have to have parentheses and a comma, is -2. Then I jump down. That's kind of in a space, isn't it? So it's not quite to the 2, but it's past the 1.5 or 1.5 line. So that has to be -1 3/4, right? Because it's 3/4 of the way to the 2. So -2 running back, jumping down -1 3/4. All right. And then M tells me to run forward, once again, parentheses separated by comma, running forward for my X, 1, and then I don't go anywhere, right? I'm just stopping there. So I know that has to be a 0 for my Y. I don't jump up and I don't jump down. Other things we're going to do now, there was a whole bunch on here, so I skipped half of them. Okay, so don't get upset that I'm only doing half of them with you. I want to give you more time to do your work. This is going to be about a 30-minute video, so I want to give you that extra time. So I did most of the evens, but I also did the 13 just to remind you how to do those. So now this says graph and label the point on the coordinate plane. What do I label it with? I'm going to label it with the letter that they put in front of the ordered pairs. So on 6, I know it's going to be labeled Q, but I got to figure out where that Q goes. Once again, I only put 1 point. I run, either forward or backwards, then I jump, either up or down, then I put my point. I have to do 2 points in order to, or 2 coordinates to do 1 point. So I know I'm going to run backwards, because it's a -2. So I run back to the -2, and then I'm jumping up 1/4. Well, 1/4 is 1/4 of the way, right? And half is 2/4 of the way. So it'll be right below that halfway mark. I put my point and I label it with a Q. All right, 8, jumping in. I know yours are there, your negatives are there, but our odds are there. We're only going to do these positives. So then 8 is S. It says -1, so I'm going to run backwards 1. And then it says -1/2. So I'm going to jump down, because it's negative, to the 1/2, which is that first blue line. Once I jump down to that blue line, then I can put my point. And once my point is there, then I can label it with an S. 10, for the U, now I'm going to decimals instead of fractions. That's fine. I know how to do that. 7/5, 75/6, same as 3/4, right? 3/4. We can do that. 75, it's positive, so I know I'm going to run forward 0.75. So beyond the half, which would be 50 cents, but not quite a whole dollar. So right in the middle between the halfway mark. I must have skipped one because I went all the way over to the 2. I must have gone to 12. I apologize for that. Once I go there, so doing the 12, once I go to the 2, I don't jump up or down, right? Because it's a 0. So I'm going to put it right on the line, and then I label it with a W. I think I skipped number 10 altogether, and I apologize for that. Now on 13, then, I have a 0, -2. So my 0 is once again my origin. I'm not going to go forward or backwards. I don't run because there's not a number. I'm just simply going to jump. I want to either see how high I can jump or see how low I can jump. It says to go to -2, so from my origin, I'm going to drop straight down to the -2, and I'm going to put my point. Once I put my point, then I know I'm going to label it with an X. All right, then the other ones that you're going to see is, here is a coordinate plane, here are some points. We need to know what the ordered pair is. Remember to always run before you jump to figure out what those numbers are, and that you always have parentheses with a comma so that you know it is an ordered pair. All right, so when I'm looking for A on number 14, A is in my quadrant 1. I know I'm running forward as a positive number, and then jumping up as a positive number. I'm running forward to what? Well, I run forward to, oh, I made it bigger, I apologize. I run forward to the 4, and then I'm going to jump up to the 4 as well. So my ordered pair for A is running 4, jumping up 4. You can put positive, positive if you want to, but it's not required because we know any number without a sign is automatically positive. C is in my quadrant 2 because it's going negative. My first number is running backwards and then jumping up, so that's going to be a positive. Now, on this grid, notice there's only 1 unit for every line. To where on the previous one, there was 1 unit for every 2 lines. So I just got to make sure I use the right numbers. On my C, I'm running back 3. So I put my parentheses, my comma. My X coordinate is -3. Then I'm jumping up. And I only jump up 1 unit. So I know my Y is going to be +1. On 18, for E then, E is in my 4th quadrant. So I'm going +5. I'm going to run forward to a 5. That's going to be my X Make sure my parentheses and my comma are there. And then I'm going to jump down for my y. I jump down to a -3. So my ordered pair is +5, -3. In parentheses, separated by a comma. G is located in quadrant 3. So on G, I'm going backwards and down. So I'm going to run for my x to a negative, let's see, it's here. So a -4 has to be my x. And then jumping down, I'm going to -5. So I know my second one for my y is -5 when I jump down. And then J is kind of right here in this weird little spot, right? So that's the way most of our coordinate planes are going to look. They're going to give us whole units for every line. But this one, it doesn't give us a halfway mark. But I know if I'm only going halfway to the 1 and then halfway up to the 1, then I'm either going to use decimals or I'm going to use fractions to show a half. So for J, I'm going forward a half or 0.5. Either one is acceptable. And then I'm jumping up a half or 0.5 for my y. So my coordinates are either 1/2 or 0.5, 0.5, 5/10, 5/10. In parentheses, separated by a comma. All right, so that's the wrong page number. Your page number should actually be, I apologize for all the mistakes on here. I figured out late last night that the old video also had a lot of crackling, so I wanted to redo this one. Your page numbers should actually be 181, questions 2 through 15, and then 182, 1 through 6. All right? And if you have any questions, come back. If you didn't get it, rewind a little bit and rewatch. You should have enough time to get your homework done.